Hey everybody, I'm Sierra,
And I'm Ben.
and welcome back to another episode of The Unsolved Couple, where every week Ben and I recap one of the original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved mysteries.
All right, Benjamin. How are you feeling tonight?
I feel so good. So ready.
good.
So ready for this.
Yeah, so how was your week this week, babe?
I was great. Good week. How was your week?
You know what, you guys, I'm just gonna
How was your week?
I'm just gonna ask you guys to all step out of the room for a second while I have a quick conversation with my husband. Babe, this is a recording, so when I ask you a question, you have to give more than one word answers.
I said I had a great week.
No,
How
you
was your week?
didn't. You said, great.
It was
Okay, you guys are all welcome to come back in. Sorry you had to witness that fight between my husband and I. You would think that 9 episodes in, he would understand how this back and forth works, but we're working on it. We'll get him there eventually.
We're getting there slowly.
No, how was your week? Anything you want to share with our friends in the ether?
No,
Okay.
I don't. How was your week?
I had a good
Do you
week.
want to share? You can share.
No, I mean, there was nothing super crazy this week. I will say in just relation to this, I watched this episode earlier this week and was really excited to see how even your demeanor was going to change or what the text message was going to be after you watched this week's episode.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll start there. How did you feel about this episode of Unsolved Mystery?
Oh, dear. I mean, I will say there's a couple that are actually the two you're going to cover are interesting.
Yeah.
And let's just Sierra watched it and then she made it very clear which ones I had to cover.
Yeah, I picked this week who was going to be covering what, because for your treat, everybody, and personally for mine too, I'm excited to see Ben cover.
Yeah. And so I didn't do a ton of research on your two, which were the most interesting ones.
Yeah.
The other ones I mean, we'll get into it, but yeah. So,
But this is one of those episodes that you would have watched when it originally aired, that you would have felt like you got to the end of it and was like, wait, there is no resolve?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And
you would have been mad after watching.
100%. I would have been.
This was a classic Unsolved Mysteries episode that did not really give any resolution whatsoever.
No. So I'm kind of curious of like where that's going to lead us, but yeah.
Yeah.
But the last one, oh dear. But we'll leave it at that till we get it. But yeah, so Sierra got an early head start on this one, and I was late to the game because it was a little crazy. First part of the week for me, so I couldn't get to it till a little later, but I finally did, and I realized why she was so excited about this episode.
It's going to be a fun one. Okay, so we are recapping this evening Season 1, Episode 9 of Unsolved Mysteries. And I will get us started here with our first story. So
and this one's, we've got 4 on this one.
We have 4 tonight.
Really,
yeah.
I mean, we
I guess I should
deep
tonight.
into
It's
this.
tonight for us. We record in the evenings, but yeah, we've got 4 stories to cover.
Yeah.
With you guys.
Yeah, we really dived into it on this one.
Yeah, so I'm hoping we can kind of get through some of them a little quickly because we don't want to keep you guys, out there listening for too long or drag things out. But these 4 story episodes make it a little difficult sometimes to kind of keep things in the kind of time zone that we would like to keep them in. So our first story is about a young man named Kirk Sova, S-O-V-A. Sova. Okay, Sova, Kirk Sova. And we open up with the Unsolved Mysteries episode, there is 3 young boys running through a field, and they see a body on the ground. And they ask the iconic question. Did you hear what the reenactment actors said?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Is this a mannequin?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
it's never a mannequin.
No one. They say no one dumps a mannequin out into the
Out into
just
the field.
out in ditches in the back of houses and fields.
So October 28th, 1981, in Newburgh Heights, Ohio, a suburb of Cleveland, 3 boys make a gruesome discovery. They find a body lying face up in a puddle inside a ravine. The body was in a Christ-like pose, so it seemed to have been staged, and had been deliberately placed where it laid. Apart from a few scratches, there was no signs of injury on this young boy. One tennis shoe was in a pile of rocks about 12 feet away, and his other shoe was missing. Several hours later, his body was identified as the 17-year-old boy, Kirk Zova. An autopsy revealed that he had died 42 to 36 hours before his body was found. But...
Wait, 42 or 24?
24 to 36. Yes, thank you.
All
That's
right.
my dyslexia coming in right there.
I was going to say, hold on, time out.
24 to 36 hours before his body had been found. But he had been missing for 5 days.
5 days. He was a reported missing person.
Yeah. So Ken and Dorothea, his parents, called Unsolved Mysteries as a last-ditch effort to find answers to, honestly, a handful of answers that were plaguing them. Where was Kirk during the 5 days he was missing? Did he die in that vacant lot that his body was found? Was it placed there? And is it possible for a perfectly healthy 17-year-old boy to die without any apparent cause? The sudden and unexplained death of a teenager, as Robert tells us, is always tragic.
Yes.
However, this tragedy is compounded by the mysterious circumstances surrounding his death and his disappearance. So, a quick little history on Kirk was a high school junior who lived with his parents in a quiet, blue-collar neighborhood in the outskirts of Cleveland, Ohio. He was the youngest of 4 sons, and he was actually really close with his parents. According to his mom, he never really got into troubles with the neighbors, never had any issues or troubles at school with teachers, and he had no record or no rapport with the local police, which during that time in a small town was not hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any of your run-ins with the police?
Did I have run-ins with the police?
In your small town?
Yeah, but they didn't know it was me.
Oh, so
Yeah.
you ran.
Well, I hid.
Oh, you were one of those.
Yeah, me and my friends. I was a freshman in high school, and it was just right after graduation. And I had a handful of friends that were seniors, and we wanted to do something crazy. So we went down to like the little local community swimming hole and went skinny dipping.
It's bad.
The police showed up.
Of course.
And there was like 4 girls like thinking like this was our rebellion. Like this is what we were going to do to like really, show our rebellious side. And so they came down there and they turned their lights on. They didn't spotlight us or anything. And so we swam across the river, and it was a big river, and like hid behind some driftwood and rocks and stuff like that. And the cops would not leave. We were so cold because this is in Oregon in like the very, very top of summer. So once the sun goes down, it's still cold. And we are wet and we are naked, and they could see our clothes. They knew we were somewhere because our clothes were all on the rocks down there. I kept waiting for them to like take our clothes and be like, all right, girls, if you guys...
We're seizing the clothes.
Yeah, if you guys want these back. But finally, after what felt like an eternity, they left. So, no. I had run-ins with them, but they never knew who I was. So we get some reenactment videos of two really cool looking teenage boys. Tight, acid wash, high rise jeans, awesome 80s hair. Like, it was great. I loved it.
Oh, it's the 80s.
Yeah, it's the 80s. Of Kirk leaving home on Friday, October 23rd. So right before Halloween, right? It's late in the afternoon. 1 block from his house, he meets up with his buddy Sam. And Sam said, hey, there's a Halloween party tonight. And I couldn't find if this was actually true or not, but in the reenactment actor, he says, man, I wanted to go to a haunted house, not a party, or something like that. And I was like, yeah, haunted houses are always better than a party.
Agreed.
Yeah. However, it seems as if at this point that is where they ended up. So Kirk left with his friend Sam that night to go to this party and never returned home.
It was the last his parents saw him.
Yes. Yeah. And his mom's interviewed multiple times, and she lets us know, like, he did go out with his friends and hang out. He had a good social life, but he rarely stayed out all night. It did not seem to be a thing that he did on the regular. So by Saturday morning, Kirk's parents started to get really worried, and they began calling around. And Ken got in his car and drove around and scoured the area. He searched all of the neighborhoods and kind of the common places he knew Kirk would be at. As the day went on, there was no trace of Kirk to be found. Ken began to worry, and by Sunday, his parents were like pretty sure he wasn't coming home, so they filed a missing police report with the Cleveland police. Meanwhile, Dorothea and her other sons started papering. This family was doing everything they could. They papered the neighborhood. They handed out missing flyers to people. They started searching the ravines, the schoolyards. She was even looking in dumpsters for him.
It sounds like, I guess this is how it was portrayed, in the episode. But I feel like pretty much the parents did 90% of the work.
Yeah, and we'll kind of actually get to that at the end of this. But the parents, from the moment, even though they didn't report him missing until Sunday.
Yeah, that I will say I was a little surprised by that.
And I don't know. The rumor mill back then, and I think even like while we were growing up, in some police departments, this is still the case. You can't report somebody missing until they've been gone for 48 hours.
I don't think
so. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but it seemed as if.
But kids, you can always like.
I don't know. Runaway kids, that's not always the case. So it seemed as if from the moment they realized on Saturday morning he was missing, they were out there literally like beating the bushes down trying to find him, doing everything that they could. And it seemed as if in this small town there was quite a few people helping, willing to hang up signs, getting the word out, and doing everything they could. So Sunday afternoon, Dorothea, the mom, turns up her first lead. Kirk's friend told her that he had been at a party on Friday night. They'd gone together in Newburgh Heights. And the woman who rented the apartment, her name was Susan. And this is all we ever know about this lady.
Yeah, this is all
This is it. We don't know how old she is. We don't know what her connection
she's
is.
An adult. She's renting an apartment.
Yeah, so clearly she's over 18, at least of some sort. So Dorothea gets in her car and goes over to Susan's house and knocks on the door and asks to speak to her. And the lady answering the door says, oh, actually, I'm the babysitter, and she's not here. And so she says, hey, can you have her call me when she gets home? And the babysitter says, sure, and Dorothea leaves. When Susan returns home, she actually does call Dorothea.
Yeah.
However, she says that she never saw Kirk and she never had a party. So
she lies.
She lies. However, the pizza delivery man lets us know that he actually delivered a pizza there that night, and there was a huge party happening.
There was a party.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Yeah. Ben was a pizza delivery driver for a while.
Sure was.
And he looked real hot in his pizza delivery outfit.
That's 100% not true.
And he always smelled like flour and pizza sauce.
Yeah?
Yeah. all the time.
It's a great job in
Well,
college.
and your car smelled like it too because
Oh,
you always had hot
constantly.
pizzas in your car.
Especially the passenger seat.
Yeah, it always smelled. Just this little truck. It looked like it was the truck out of Toy Story,
Yeah.
but it was red and it smelled like pizza all the time.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Dorothea calls Susan again and is like, "Excuse me, the pizza delivery guy says you did have a party over there." And so she admits that, yes, she did have a party over there. And, in fact, that Kirk had been there.
Kirk had been there.
And that over the night, more than a dozen people had kind of just dropped by, come and gone as they pleased.
But where are the police?
I don't
How are
know.
they not
All
figuring
of
this
the
stuff
information
out?
that we get on the timeline is from Dorothea.
That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we know about this, and she even like tracks the pizza guy down.
Yeah, this is
then
all
confronts
from
Susan
Dorothea.
about the lies, and
Yeah.
then gets the truth. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is going on here?
Yeah. So, and she was told that it was kind of a hodgepodge of people in this community having this party. Some were Kirk's age. So this lady Susan has a party with high school boys at her house.
Again, here we are in the 80s
Mm-hmm.
with these weird relationships of
These age
adults.
gaps that are just not appropriate.
I mean, I'm sure, like, obviously, this is not unique to the 80s. I'm sure
No,
it's 100%
I
still
understand that
going
it's
on today,
probably not unique to the 80s.
but
But yeah,
again-
we are 9 episodes into Unsolved Mysteries, and this is the third time where
at least.
something happens to a teenage kid after he spent time alone or at least in the vicinity of a group of adults.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't even seem like
Nope.
concerned that,
No big deal that this
I mean, this is just part of the
adult
story.
woman is having teenage boys over to her house to party.
Well, an adult that needs a babysitter.
Yeah.
So what's going on
What's going
there?
on? Yeah.
Where are the kids at this time?
Yeah. And she had told Dorothea that she didn't think that Kirk knew most of the people at the party. Okay? So Susan also drops a little bit of a bombshell to Dorothea is that Kirk had been drinking very heavily.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And that mainly what they'd had at the house for liquor was Everclear. Now, do you know what Everclear is?
I don't.
You don't. Okay. So Everclear is, I believe, like 125% proof, and it's actually illegal in several states. And this is like a, 16, 17-year-old boy?
They said he was 17.
17-year-old boy. And his mom lets us know that she didn't really know of Kirk to be a big partier. Like, she assumed if he was with friends that were drinking, he'd probably drink too, but he did not seem to be the kind of kid that was out partying and drinking heavily, let alone drinking Everclear, which also is another indicator that this lady Susan's got some problems. If she's providing that kind of alcohol to teenagers, girl, get a life. Move on.
Wow.
Yeah. So now we get Sam's, because here's the thing. He wasn't at this party alone. He went with his friend Sam. Again, I'm watching this episode waiting for the detective to like get on and tell us what they've done.
No.
However, once again, Dorothea tells us that Sam, who went to the party with him, told her that Kirk continued to drink and started showing signs of being really sick. He was stumbling, he was knocking things over, and became ill, was throwing up. And Susan told Sam to take him outside. At around 9:30, he takes his buddy Kirk outside to the front yard so he can get some fresh air. However, it was cold that night, so he tells his friend, "Hey, wait here. I'm going to run back inside and grab your jacket that you left hanging on the fence." So he's got to run through the house into the backyard. When he came back outside a few minutes later, Kirk was gone. He searched kind of around the area a little bit, looked around. "Hey, Kirk, what's happening?" And then just assumed that Kirk walked home.
And so he just leaves.
I'm also going to assume that Sam's obviously heavily intoxicated as well.
I mean, I guess if we're giving him the benefit of the doubt.
So.
But like, this is your friend and you're just like, hey.
Yeah.
I went to go get a coat and he was gone. So it just was like.
Figured that he was so heavily intoxicated he could barely stand up that he would stumble and find his way home.
Yeah, well, he says when he brought him out, he left him like leaning against a fence because he was so drunk.
He couldn't even stand up straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yet then he just walks away. All right. I mean, and I mean, this is his story.
Yeah.
Susan also told us two different
he wasn't
stories
interviewed by
here.
the police.
What's that?
This wasn't interviewed by the police.
No, that was what I like. The cops, detectives. Yeah. No one talks to the. So we have no idea. I am super curious on like where their investigation led.
So Wednesday, October 28th, 5 days after Kirk left home, his body was found in that ravine. Behind a warehouse on Harvard Street. He was found 500 yards from the duplex at the party, where the party was. Okay. As I'm watching this, I'm thinking, this shouldn't be that hard to figure out how that night played out.
This is the last place he was. It's the last place he's seen.
Yep.
And now he's literally
500 yards?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not very far.
No. So the police combed the area for clues. They found his shoe wedged in some rocks a few feet from his bodies. They were never able to find his right shoe. And his body was taken to the county coroner's office for an autopsy. And then this is again where things get weird. The coroner determined that he had died the 24 to 36 hours before. So he had been alive apparently for at least 3 days since the party. But the coroner could also not determine a cause of death.
Yeah, that's weird.
It is weird. The manner of death was actually assigned as probable accident. And he said that they were only able to determine this because they had eliminated everything else. He had not been beaten or traumatized in any way, and his blood alcohol level was actually only 0.11. Which was not nearly high enough for alcohol poisoning to end his life. But again,
but so
that's what 5 days after that party, he still had alcohol in his system 5 days later. That seems wild to me.
Well, but we're assuming that was the only time he drank. So that's the thing. It's like, so he was continued several days later to have some type of alcohol. It wasn't lingering from Friday night for 3 days. Yeah. So,
unless the estimated time of death is incorrect, which is actually what I think is probably most probable.
Yeah, I mean, but now we're making guesses.
Now I'm speculating.
I mean, we're speculating to try to solve something else.
Well, I will say, and it was cold. The body breaks down slower when it's cold. Anyways, yeah, I don't know.
I'm not a coroner.
He didn't have any drugs in his system, no pre-existing conditions, and no signs of an unnatural cause of death. So, we got a mystery on our hands.
We sure do have a mystery. And it sounds like it's, at this point, unsolved
mystery. So, after the initial shock of death, Dorothea began to sort of piece together the strange events that occurred in the 5 days. Again, she's doing this on her own.
Yeah, like she's being the detective here.
Yeah, she interviews David, a friend of Kirk's, who claims that on Monday he actually saw Kirk. He did not know at this point that his buddy was missing.
Yeah.
So David's driving to a job interview, and he says on the other side of the road, he sees Kirk and another boy who he didn't recognize walking along a busy street, less than a mile from Kirk's home. He actually decided, maybe I should pull over and offer him a ride. So he slows down. So it wasn't even like a fast drive-by. It wasn't on a 55-mile-an-hour road. He actually full-on stops, rolls down his window, and tries to wave to his friend.
We said he got out.
Yeah.
That was one thing when I first, he's like, I was driving down the road and I saw him walking along the road. I was like, Okay, well, but you can mistake people driving down the road.
Easily.
But he literally was believed so much that that was Kirk that he pulled over to try to give him a ride.
Yeah.
Supposedly. I mean, that's the story.
That's what he's telling. Yeah. And I will say time is an interesting construct when you're trying to recall things. And I don't know how long it had been since Dorothea had.
Yeah, but they interviewed him. He tells the story.
Yeah, he does tell us the story. I'm just saying, if you asked me what happened last Tuesday afternoon, I'd have to like really try to figure it out by like checking things. So I always wonder, I guess he had a job interview that day, so we would have known what day he was driving.
But also, if someone asked you, when was the last time you saw your friend?
Yeah, that's true.
That now has passed, you would remember the last time you saw someone.
Yeah.
Like, right? You would remember the last interaction you had with that person.
Where are the police?
I don't know.
Yeah. So he says, however, that as he gets out of the car to offer his friend a ride, on the opposite side of the road, a van pulls up. Kirk, his buddy, yells out, "Hey, Francisco," or Franco, or something like that. And him and the other boy ran over to the van and got in. David thought it was weird, but he also didn't know his buddy was supposedly missing at that point. Because he even says in the interview, he's like, if I would have known that he was like in danger or missing or people were looking for him, I would have like tried to do something. I would have intervened. I would have followed the van. I would have done something.
Yeah.
But his body wasn't found for 2 days later.
Mm-hmm.
So then we get this weird report that I don't know if this actually has anything to do with the story or what, but Monday, a stranger who had been seen hanging around the family's neighborhood noticed Kirk's missing flyer in the window of a local record store. Not recording store, record store. They don't make those. They don't have record stores anymore. No. Sam Goody's is about as close as I can get to a record store for our generation.
Yeah.
He went into the store, told the manager that he might as well take the flyer down because they're going to find him dead in 2 days. And no one's going to know how he died. And then walked away.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why would the manager also make this story up?
I don't know. I'm not saying he did make the story up.
Or it was a girl, yeah.
It's just weird.
Because even the manager was like, oh, it was weird and skeptical. So she didn't even say anything to anybody about it until they found the kid dead 2 days later.
And they don't know how he died.
And then this is the best part. The next day, before the store opened, he left flowers and a note. It says, "Roses are red, the sky is blue. They found him dead and they'll find you too." She reports that to the police.
Well, yeah, I would too.
Yeah. This is when the police decide to start showing up. They find this man and they question him and say that he's just a local crazy person who wandered down here from Detroit.
Okay.
And the manager said she never sees him again. It sounds like they kind of kicked him back up to Detroit. And the police say, well, Kirk was only missing at this point, so we had nothing to hold the guy on. So they just let him go.
Yep, but
yeah.
I thought they'd found his body by this time.
It sounds like this was in between the time that they had. I don't know. This is where like it gets a little convoluted because once again, the police weren't investigating anything.
Well, I guess we don't know because they weren't interviewed.
Yeah. So on Wednesday, the day that Kirk's body was found, Dorothea actually that morning at 3 a.m. receives a phone call from Susan. 3 in the morning, Susan calls Dorothea and says, "Hey, I think that there's somebody asleep in my basement. If you want to check it out, it might be Kirk." So Dorothea was like really caught off guard. She had spoken to her on the phone many a times, never said a word about someone else being in the house. However, she told her husband Ken about it. He like gets up and goes over to the house. Police don't show up, but the dad does.
Where are the police?
So Susan lets him in to the house. He goes down into the duplex, goes down to the basement, thinking like maybe Kirk had gotten hurt or he was sick, whatever he could, he was going to go down there and look for him. However, he finds a cot in the basement that clearly someone had been sleeping in.
Yeah.
However, he searched the whole basement and couldn't find anybody there. So that's kind of where like our story sort of like ends with Kirk's death.
The dad does say too at that point. He says, I know Kurt wasn't where he was found. Oh, yeah.
He had checked that ravine the day prior, and there was no body there.
He had actually been in that area. He was looking for his son, and his body was.
Yeah, they said it was a very visible like location because there was a warehouse. There was this duplex. There was a lot of things around it. It wasn't like that body had been sitting there for hours or days on end.
Yeah.
So 3 months after Kirk's death, another weird thing happens, which once again gets Dorothea the only one trying to ask any questions about stuff.
Dorothea, the mom and investigator.
Yeah. A boy that Kirk used to be friends with, or at least knew growing up, his name was Eugene. He was 13 years old, was also found dead in a ravine on the same street on Harvard Street. So this ravine like runs along the street. So the same ravine area just down the street further, 2 miles from where Kirk's body is. Both boys had been missing for a little bit of time before they were found dead, and his right shoe was missing and never found, and his left shoe was like found a few feet away from him.
Okay.
However, they determined that he had just fallen into the ravine and died.
But
that's all there is on that one.
He lost his shoe.
And lost his shoe that was never found.
Yeah, somewhere. And then he decided, I'm going to keep going with one shoe.
Yeah.
And then had an accident.
So Robert Stacks comes on. Is it Robert Stacks?
Robert Stack, yeah.
Stack, yeah. Stack. I don't know why I keep wanting to add the S to his name. Robert
Maybe there
Stack.
Is an S. I should look at it. I don't know.
Comes on and lets us know that Kirk's mysterious death leaves a trail of disturbing questions in its wake. How exactly did he die? Where had he been for the 5 days after he left home? Had he slept in the basement of the duplex? Was there any connection between his death and Eugene's? Years later, Ken and Dorothea are still searching for answers.
Well, because now, I mean, I think the same thing. We're still in 1988 when this aired, I think, or around there. And he died as a 19. Like it's not like been 6 months or even a year. It has been 6-7 years.
Yeah.
So like, this is an open case.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
and
you ready?
It's been open for a while.
Yeah, you ready for your update?
Oh, I'm so ready for my update. Give it to me.
Okay, it's still unsolved.
Really?
Yeah. So
I kind of figured it was
unfortunately
because it sounds like the police didn't do.
So that's how this actually all gets kind of going originally. So Dorothea and Ken filed, I think, a lawsuit or started. They raised some major flags about this police department.
Okay.
Just completely botching this case and multiple others. Turns out that there was a major drug problem within this police department.
In the police department?
Several of them were arrested.
Oh, okay.
Several of them are charged and are serving extensive prison sentences.
Wow. Okay.
Because of corruption, drug use, like anything that a police officer could do bad, this group of police officers and investigators were a part of.
Okay.
And it seemed like there was major corruption and cover-up happening on lots of different things. So that's one of the reasons like we're watching this show and we're like, dude, what is happening? I think one of the reasons there's no police to investigate, the head detective on this ended up like serving a major sentence down the road not too long after, like, so
I didn't see that coming.
There's that, right? And then in November 2019, it was announced that the Newburgh Heights Police Department was going to actually reopen the case. And they were partnering with Tiffin University. So they had a group of university students take a look at this with a criminal justice professor and a dozen students, analyzed it, went over the evidence, and tried to form up some theories to help police. Then in February 2020, Kirk's case was featured in CrimeCon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Where they have an event called CrowdSolve. And in this event, hundreds of participants work together with law enforcement, criminal forensics experts to examine the case and help drum up new clues or theories or thoughts. It is still unknown at this point if any big information was brought forward from any of these, if there was anything that helped with starting a new sort of going down a new pathway, and that there's a $5,000 reward being offered. And this is still an ongoing case. And they ask that if you have any information or tips or advice or anything that could help potentially lead to solving this case, you can call Crime Stoppers at 216-252-7463, or you can call and or text NHPD at 261-386-0024, and all tips can be given anonymously. Sad.
Yeah, very sad.
Yeah. So this is still 100% completely unsolved, and it's frustrating because it should not be. I feel like
So this is still an
unsolved mystery. It's interesting. So I went on, I don't put a lot of stock into Reddit threads.
Yeah.
But there was several Reddit threads on this of just people saying like that this case was one of the first cases that they remember hearing about when they were younger, or always wanting to know what happened, or grew up in that area, and that they still can't believe that it's been solved. And it just seems as if this case did capture a lot of people. It was interesting that it made it to the CrimeCon event. There's several podcasts on this. Hopefully the more and more word gets out, maybe. Unfortunately, like, Kirk's parents are no longer alive. I think he has one brother left alive today, at least around the time that the news article that I pulled this from, that is still trying to help solve this case for his family. So, sorry guys, that one has kind of a bummer ending. And yeah, it's still an unsolved mystery. All right, Ben, you've got our next story for us.
All right, so we got a family reunion story. All right, and this is a story about John Nellis. We kind of learn about John's life. He was born to she was actually a Vietnamese woman, but at the time his mother was living in China.
Okay.
And she met a serviceman. His name was Melvin Nellis, and Melvin met John's mom. We never know her name.
Yeah.
He doesn't ever give us her name. And he lived with her, and he fathered John in China. And he lived with them. Melvin lived with them for about 5 years, and then he was actually pulled out and sent back to the United States.
Yeah.
This is the crazy part.
It is crazy because he's like...
So he fathers John.
Yeah. Lives with this woman, this Vietnamese woman who's living in China.
Lives with this woman and his son for several years. Then the service sends him back to the States, and he says, "I'll write." And he continues to write. Sorry,
you can't come with me.
Yeah, he can't come with them
because they're not married.
Because they're technically not married, so he can't bring this woman who's not his wife and his own son. He
could have brought his son, but yeah. And he says, I promise.
But the mom wanted the son to stay with her.
Yeah, she wanted him to stay and says, I promise I'll write you.
Melvin writes John and his mom for a while. He doesn't say how long. And then their letters just stop.
Shocking.
So not too long after, they say in, 1952, John and his mom move to her native land of South Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And as we know, there's tensions growing. And it sounds like his mom was a great woman. She worked hard. She sold.
Yeah, she put him through private school.
She sold produce to put him through private school. And John says that like she spent 2/3 of her income just to
on his education.
On his education, so that he could learn English. And then she does a crazy thing for him. In 1957, she takes him to the U.S. Embassy to get him a registration document to prove that John is a U.S. citizen. So she somehow has the ability to prove John's father is a U.S. citizen, that he was a service member, and John should be a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
So John actually gets a certificate saying that he is a U.S. citizen,
Yeah.
which comes in handy later on.
Yeah, it's good that she did that kind of before wartime breaks out.
Yeah, so that's in 1957. Obviously, we know the 60s, the Vietnam War breaks out, a lot of craziness. We actually never find out what happens to John's mom.
Yeah, we never find out, which is really sad because it seemed like she truly cared about her main goal was to get her son to America.
She wanted to get him to the United States because clearly, like, there's unrest there. She was working so hard, and I'm sure their financial situation was not
she knew
great.
he would have more opportunities here.
She wanted to get him there. So John tells us that then sometime late 60s, early 70s, he meets a woman and he fathers a child. And in 1971, she leaves him and takes the child. But he does learn that she marries, again, we never know this lady's name.
Yeah.
She marries a U.S. Marine in 1973, and he assumes that because she marries him and she goes to the States,
he assumes that his child,
his son,
is now living in the United States with this Marine father
and his
or stepfather,
his
and
ex-girlfriend who he
and
had a child
the biological mother.
So then comes 1975. It's the fall of Saigon, the end of the Vietnam War, and John and his then girlfriend named Vivian are trying to get out.
Yeah.
And they barely get out. Thankfully, because of what John's mom had done for him, he is able to prove that he's a United States citizen. And he literally is able to catch one of the last planes.
Yeah, he says he's on one of the very last flights out of the city, knowing that he's finally going to America.
Yeah. And I think we can all, relate to, or at least these images are it's very similar to what we saw at the pull out of Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So John makes it to the U.S. in 1975. Him and Vivian get married here in the U.S. They settle down into California. But John is telling us this story because his life has clearly been hard. He now has really never known his father, and he had a son who was taken away at a very young age. We don't know how old he was at the time. What comes to find out, he finds out somehow, we don't know how, after he's made it to the U.S., that his son is still over there.
Yeah, the mom leaves him.
Yeah. And
we don't get any background on that story. This poor kid.
Yeah. So, obviously John he is devastated.
He's devastated because at this point, John, he's very proud of himself. He's married. He has a daughter. He owns a home. He's gotten an education. And he's like, I have all of the things that my mother wanted for me. And I want to share that with my child.
He doesn't want his son to go through what he went through.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So he's actually come to Unsolved Mysteries to, find his dad because, he doesn't know his dad.
Well, he assumes, I want to know my son, so I'm going to make the assumption that my dad would want to know me.
Yeah. And then he wants to find his son. So that's what Unsolved Mysteries' mission was to do. But then they give us an update right away.
Yeah, really quickly.
Yeah, they tell us, hey, this worked. They said it wasn't very long after this. Robert Stack tells us, it was within weeks. He finds out that his dad is retired and living in Tokyo, Japan. That was all we know.
His dad didn't seem interested. It just made me sad, but
his son, I actually found out his son was in the Philippines Somehow
Yeah.
he'd made it there, and they reunited him. And they had video footage of his son walking off the plane and being reunited with John. And I mean, he said it's been at that point it had been like 17 years.
Yeah, his kid was like on the verge of adulthood at this point.
Yeah, and so we
That kid looked so shell shocked.
Yeah, he really did. Like
I almost felt bad that I felt like Unsolved Mysteries a little bit intruded on this moment. It felt like we shouldn't have been there watching this take place. This poor kid was abandoned by his mom. We don't even know what happened in that 17 years.
Yeah.
And somehow we don't know what his quality of life, what he was doing, or how he got to the Philippines, let alone what his condition of living was there. But to be taken from the Philippines to Southern California is a wild whiplash.
Yes. And I mean, and to a man that technically he doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know this guy. Like, yeah, it's his dad, but he doesn't know him.
He doesn't know him.
So, yeah, but it was a good story. Like, you get to see the reunited. John is very excited to see his son and
he
be
was
reunited.
on cloud nine because he was interviewed, I think, several days after they had been reunited, and he was just expressing how happy he was to be able to have his son back in his life and is hoping to give him all of the things that he's kind of missed out on over the few years that he's been out of touch with him.
So I will say I tried to dig because I was curious of the mom, like what happened there. Mm-hmm. Couldn't find anything.
Okay.
The dad, like, was he married? Did he have another wife? Did he start another family? I found his death certificate, and that I found him on one of those like ancestry places. Doesn't say that he has a spouse or any other kids, but that he died in Tokyo. He actually died in 2000 and was cremated in Tokyo. So that was all we really know about him. Mm-hmm. And so there's not a lot of follow up in their lives, but
And then you didn't see anything else, like how the son.
I looked for the son. It's fun. I tried to dig into his son. What was his son's name? Oh yeah, it's Daniel. So Daniel Nellis, but there's a man named Daniel Nellis who was convicted, and his conviction was just overturned. Like every article, everything I could find,
So
it was
that's
leading
all
me
is
to
ever that. Yeah.
And because obviously if Daniel Nellis, the son, hasn't really done anything, just kind of went and lived a quiet life, he's not going to really be in the news, or you're not going to find a ton of stuff about him. So.
And Ben doesn't do social media. Did you look and see if you could find anything on social media?
No, I don't do social media. Yeah. So, maybe someday I'll dive into the social media side. But, there's not a lot of update. But, I mean, I guess our update is that John did find his dad and he did find his son. So, good news there.
Good news there. Okay. All right. We'll move on to the next very odd story.
Yeah, this one's strange.
This one I was kind of annoyed about when I was watching it, and we can get into it. So, Father Riviera was a Catholic priest, okay? And the top of this episode is a little confusing because they tell us about the murder of Father Riviera, and then that there is a mysterious disappearance of Father John Kurgan, Kerrigan, and that the authorities fear that these two cases, over 1,000 miles apart in 2 years.
Because one of them is in New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
And then one of them's in
up on the East Coast somewhere.
I thought it was like North Dakota or something.
Yeah, that guy, Father John is what we'll call him. We'll get into him. Okay. But Robert's even asking us, like, is it possible that there's a serial killer at large who is targeting Catholic priests? Which is a big assumption to make with two different Catholic priests, one disappeared, one murder. Anyways. So
yeah, and there's not a lot of similarities.
None. There is none. There's no similarity. So on the evening of Thursday, August 5th, 1982, a call for help comes into the rectory of St. Francis Cathedral. A man named Father Patrick answers the call. The caller identified himself as Michael Camello, and he said that his grandfather was having a heart attack and needed a priest to come immediately to issue last rites. However, Father Patrick says, hey, all of the other priests are down right now doing confessionals, and I can't leave the rectory to go get them. Can you call back in 15 minutes? So 15 minutes on the dot, another phone call comes in. And this time, Father Riviera took the call. The caller tells him the exact same story. And he said that if the father could come, he would meet him at the rest stop on Interstate 25, 20 miles south of Santa Fe. And he would be driving like a blue pickup. And that from there, he could follow him to his grandfather's house for the last rites. However, Father Riviera did not actually ever return that evening and was reported missing right away. On Sunday, August 7th, 2 days after the search began, his body was found on a deserted dirt road off Interstate 25 of Santa Fe, about a mile east of the Waldo exit and 3 miles from the rest stop where they believe he had met up with this gentleman. And he was found shot in the abdomen.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's a bad way to go. So, on the night of the murder, the man called himself Michael Camillo, told Father that he would be waiting for him at the rest stop with a blue truck. Investigators discovered that phone at the rest stop was out of service that night. So the call had to have been made from somewhere else. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. And this detective, I don't know if he had just taken a course on serial killers or something.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, is this guy attempting to be an FBI profiler?
Yes.
Because he is just giving us... He is
I
giving us all types of theories and facts.
Around this time, there was FBI agents going to local police departments and trying to do some training on profiling and understanding crime scenes, because this was all brand new science that the FBI was uncovering or was investigating or figuring out.
I thought he was a character straight out of Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
You know?
So this lieutenant, bless his heart, I do think that he had just gotten back from, a week-long conference at the Holiday Inn, and he had been taking several classes, because he is giving us all kinds of one-liners as to why he thinks that a serial killer is somehow involved with this.
He's giving us all types of theories. He's taken us into the mind of the killer.
Yeah, and theories that there's no evidence for.
That's what I mean. I was like, wait, how did we get here? Like,
yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. So he gives us his theory that they took him to a remote desert area, forced him out of his vehicle, and that this is a serial killer who took a trophy of the...
Well, and he does say, he's like, and there is definitely two.
Yeah, that was the
because
other thing.
No
he's like, there's no way that Father would have been...
one. I'm like,
been controlled just by one person. He was an older gentleman.
Well, and they had a gun.
Or if they had a weapon. And I'm going to guess this is a priest. He's probably hoping that if he's just passive to this person, that he can work through it.
I mean, here, we're making our theories.
We're making our own assumptions, but I'm also not a detective or a police officer on Unsolved Mysteries spouting off things like they're facts. I thought the
same thing. I was like...
But he tells us, for sure, that there was at least two people.
This is what they did.
This is what they did. This is how it went down. And that... that was the other thing. Oh, that they dumped his body in a very visible area, and that if they wanted to, there are lots of places near Waldo, in case serial killers are listening out there, that you could hide a body and it's never going to be found. But obviously, these people wanted this body found.
This was a statement.
Yeah, it was. Anyways, he gives us all kinds of crazy theories. Ultimately, the facts are that, you know, the father was killed. He was shot in the abdomen. His body was in a different spot than his vehicle was. His vehicle was found several days later at a different rest area, and it's been wiped clean. Okay? So
They also say that it wasn't a robbery.
it wasn't a robbery.
Because he had money on him.
Yes, he had some money on him. The only thing that was missing was his last rites kit.
Okay.
That's it. That's the only thing. And he
And
also
according to
tells
him,
us about trophies.
That was a souvenir. That was the serial killer's
Souvenir trophies. And
that's
what serial
police
killers
do.
do with their souvenir trophies.
Yeah.
I'm like,
we learned that.
this guy just finished up his he got a certificate for
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
Yeah.
It's on his wall.
Yeah. Yeah, and the detective also says he doesn't think that Father Riviere was necessarily the target. The target was just a Catholic priest, period. Again,
That does have some credence because they called one.
It does.
There's no way
Yes.
to. There is no
That's
way
about
to.
the only thing that he says
Yeah.
that has some sort of evidence.
Well, I can see
lead
how.
him
I
to
guess
that
what I'm saying is,
conclusion.
I can see how they've made that
Yeah.
conclusion because he didn't ask for a certain priest. He talked to one priest before, then he talks to a second. They don't. He seems like he doesn't care.
He gets that one point.
Yeah.
All of the other theories and speculation, wild stuff.
100%.
I'm like, what?
I know. It was
So
great.
2 years later, okay, we're at July 20th, 1984. Another priest randomly disappears.
Yeah, and I looked at it was in Montana.
Okay.
Ronan, Montana.
So 48-year-old Father John, who was new to the Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Montana. Yeah, sorry.
In Kerrigan, or it's Father Kerrigan, in Ronan, Montana.
Montana. He had only been there for a few days.
Yeah.
Vanishes.
He was probably like, dude, Montana, I'm out.
Well, he had actually, so I found for 2 years before that, he had served at a parish in Plains, Montana.
Okay.
Okay. So on the night he disappeared, the father walks across, it looks like to a great little donut bakery shop, but it's 11 o'clock at night. And I was watching this and I thought, I really want a donut right now.
I've been craving donuts for days.
I know you've been craving donuts for days, but I have very sad news is that Ben and I, for years, on our way home from date night, there was a donut place in town.
I know.
And we figured out what time the hot donuts came out.
9:30.
9:30. Anytime after 9:30 p.m. and usually like before 11, if you went into this donut shop, you got piping hot donuts. And it was like the most coveted secret because nobody else was ever there. And the donuts were like 95 cents.
I know.
It was, and they even had a drive-through.
I told you they closed that building.
They closed
but they just
that building,
opened
and
up
now it's a Starbucks. We have enough of those, but we don't have enough of. But I will say, but Ben, I don't know I don't know the time slots of that new
that's
place.
what we got to do. Some more
and they
investigating.
don't give that information out willingly. You have to stumble upon it. There is a science and a math behind figuring out where the hot donuts are.
Donuts,
we can go tomorrow and get donuts.
We got to go. We got to find this place.
Yeah, we can go tomorrow.
Because they opened up a new one. It's like a mile away from where it used to be. We got to go.
Okay.
All right, we got sidetracked with donuts.
Sorry. Anyways,
Right,
that's what I thought of when I was watching this.
We're talking about a possible serial killer here, okay?
11 o'clock, who's taking trophies to relive his killing spree.
1,000 miles apart.
Yeah, 2 years later. So it's 11 o'clock at night, which seems kind of late for a priest to be out at 11 o'clock at night.
Well, if you had a craving for a donut,
and it's right across the street from your church.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but if there's a donut place across the street and they're open at 11,
yeah, and the place on the reenactment was packed.
Well, there's a bunch of dudes hanging out, drinking coffee, and
they said
having
it was a
donuts.
bunch of people who go to that church.
Yeah, dude, I'm here
So
for
he
it.
goes over to the bakery across the street. He chats with some of his constituents. That's not the right word.
Nope.
It's not a follower. Parish people.
Okay.
Congregation. That's what I'm looking for.
There you go.
People from their congregation. And he kind of says something to him about like he was getting ready to go to bed because the next day he had several things to do, including a church service.
It's church?
Yeah. So Saturday the 21st, July 21st.
It's a good day.
It's a good day. Not for Father. Not for Father King. So he didn't show up for the first mass on Saturday morning. Okay. And then at a turnout on Highway 35 on the eastern shores of Flathead Lake, about 5 miles north, a local fruit peddler, that's what they call her, was setting up her fruit stand and discovered a pile of bloody clothes, but they were folded.
Okay.
These items included a shirt, shoes, a windbreaker jacket, and she calls the police, and on Monday, the father is reported missing. Okay? So a week later, his car is found. It's a 1976 Chevy Impala. Shakala. 20-inch blades. Abandoned, like out in the, like a big grassy area.
It was a ways from it, right?
Yeah.
It was like a couple hours, like 2 hours, they said.
Let's see, alongside Skyline Drive in Polson, Montana, 5 miles south of the area where his clothes had been discovered. So no, it wasn't too far. But again, they've been wiped clean of fingerprints. And the police officers there say that the car had been there for about a week. Okay. They conducted a search of the car. They found the keys laying on the ground. About 30 yards away, they found blood all over the seat. It's on the door panels. It's on the floorboards. Tons of personal effects from the father are found inside as well. And in the trunk, they found a shovel and a pillow with blood all over it. And there was blood splatter inside the trunk.
In the reenactment, there was blood on the shovel, too.
Yeah.
And again.
So there was $1,200 in cash.
Yeah, they said that. Not a robbery.
Not a robbery. $1,200 adjusted for inflation, Ben?
Well, we'll just do 3 times 3,600.
Nailed it. Right on the dot. 3,600.
I do. I'm not good.
This game's not fun anymore if you're going to just like, now you've figured out the math.
So good.
So they found it in his wallet, which was also like, it was not hidden. It was literally in the trunk of his car with a box labeled wallet. That's it. So if whoever kidnapped this man, because they never found, at this point, there's no body. There's obviously robbery, once again, is not a motive, right? And they have no way to know if someone called, but they theorized that someone had called and asked for either sacraments or the last rites because they couldn't find his holy oils. Okay?
Serial killer.
What?
Serial killer.
Once again, so we get the officer from New Mexico.
And
he hears about this story.
Of course he does.
He has been paying attention to the news, trying to see if there's other...
Well, he's been profiling this whole time.
He's also applied for the FBI.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. I don't know if that's true or not. He flies to Montana
I was like, oh,
to help this other guy investigate. He's like, I took a class. I know what we're going to do. And he says that in both cases, the killer wanted people to know that they had killed a priest, and they led the evidence to them behind to tell them the story.
But there's no similarities.
No, there's none.
Besides them being priests.
Yep.
I'm not saying it's not the same.
There's not even the same manner of death. Like, because we never find the Father Kerrigan's body. He's just disappeared.
So, you have a body, but, like, there's not blood in the car.
Well, and the other thing he said was the body in New Mexico was left very easily for people to find it, intentionally.
And this one, we never have a body. There's blood everywhere.
Everywhere.
I'm just like...
And a shovel.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
All right. So that's where we are left at Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
Okay. You ready for your update?
I am. This one, I was super intrigued by them, and especially because of our profiler friend.
Okay. So this case is still unsolved.
You're the worst. You're the worst.
This is one of the reasons I broke this episode up this way, is because both of the stories.
There's no way it can be unsolved. We profiled him.
We profiled. Okay. So we have two things here. First, the New Mexico lieutenant started to backpedal and said he didn't think that these were connected anymore.
What? That's so shocking.
So in April of 2015, the Catholic Church starts to release the names of different priests involved in sexual abuse of children.
And both of their names are on it.
Nope, only one of them was on there.
Okay, all right.
The Montana guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Montana guy. And so the police up there, after learning this, and they might have had some other things, their theory is, even though this is unsolved, that this might have been a vigilante justice.
Yeah, okay.
And here's the other thing. While I don't believe that there was a serial killer, around this time, there was a handful of harm caused to Catholic priests. You had a lot of young men who had grown up and were in early adulthood at this time. And this is just me speculating, because when I was reading about this, throughout the United States, there was a lot of attacks on Catholic priests. And it seemed like a lot of them had to do with the fact that these boys grew up to be men and took justice into their own hands. Because, as we know, a lot of them had gone to the Catholic Church for help, and the Catholic Church didn't do anything about it. Now, that's another podcast for another day.
Getting into that.
Yeah, I'm staying out of that because, and here's the thing, there is some amazing podcasts on that. There's some great documentaries on it. It's terribly sad. So that, while the other case, his body's never been found, it seems as if that is kind of what the police have speculated or theorized is where that's kind of gone, which goes off because the other, I will say, Father Riviere was well beloved in his community. He had been at that parish for a long time. They said that many members of the community across all different religions came together for a day of mourning and all kinds of stuff. His name was not released on that list.
And he wasn't targeted.
Yes, and exactly. He wasn't the target. But the theory could also be that whoever was angry at Catholic priests...
He didn't hold one person responsible. He just held the
So he might have been hurt or, called out and drawn out to that for the same sort of anger, aggression, revenge towards a misdoing by another Catholic priest. Now, again, that is just...
Is this the theory the police are coming up with? Okay.
Yeah. So, as of today, the New Mexico State Police Cold Case Unit is currently investigating, as of 2024, this case. They have had a few suspects who have all been cleared by fingerprints or DNA. So they must have something on file.
So they do have something. Okay.
And they do continue to follow up leads. Yes, in 21, they collected DNA and fingerprints. They've matched them to several inmates. They've all been compared with other pieces from the crime scene, and they have not been matched. So as of January 2024, I looked on the website for the cold case. The death remains unsolved, and they are still actively pursuing any leads that they can get because they do, it seems like, have some sort of evidence that they could test things against. So we have another unsolved mystery. Sorry.
Dude, this is the worst one, man.
I know. Is this making you feel like when you watched these shows back in the day and you're like, wait, I just watched this and there's no answer here?
I was curious on this one. Okay. I didn't think they were connected, but...
I didn't think they were connected either. I thought it was a stretch.
But I found it interesting because especially that first one, it looked... it was random and it was thought out, like the way they moved his vehicle and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
it intrigued me.
Yeah. I'm very, very, very excited. This next story is a treat, not only for you, but also for me. Ben,
Okay.
take it away.
All right. This is terrible. All right, so we got a mystery on our hands here. This story takes place. They actually don't tell us. It's up by the Canadian border, but it's actually in Port Angeles, Washington.
Port Angeles. What else happens in Port Angeles, Ben?
I don't know.
Come on, it's not a real story, but there is a famous love story between two high school students that take place in Port Angeles, Washington.
Between two what?
High school students.
Oh, I have no idea. I was gonna.
It's a book about a vampire
Are you freaking kidding
and
me?
a werewolf.
No, I'm not. We're not even. I am not even giving this the time of day. Okay.
Book. Ben, what story is that? That's in Port Angeles.
No, I refuse.
Twilight.
I refuse.
Team
Okay.
Edward or Team Jacob?
I'm not answering this question.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, they don't tell us that in the episode, but that's interesting. That makes the story this makes the story even better.
So on May 14th, and it's important that we know these dates, okay?
It is.
Super important. In May 18th, 1988, okay, Jamie Parr, who's 13, shows his friend, Trevor Johnson, this cool rock. This story is about a rock.
Nothing like two boys out by a river.
This story is about a rock and a
rock.
bunch of good luck. And I just did good luck with quotation marks.
Yeah.
Okay? So Jamie wants to show Trevor this awesome rock that he found along Tumwater Creek, close to the border, which is not a border. There's water there.
There's water there, yeah.
I know. All right. So they see it. And we get this reenactment between these two. Do you want to hear some of the quotes? I
would
wrote
love
them
to.
down.
I would love to hear some of these quotes.
Two. So he shows them this rock in this creek, and it has all these markings on it. Okay? And they're amazed by this. It's incredible.
Okay.
All these drawings on this thing. Okay? And one of them says, people drew it with a stick eons and years ago. Maybe the Martians came and did it. It's got all of the aspects of nature. What does that mean? All the aspects of nature? But here's the thing. These are kids, okay? So it's... but this is the best one. This is my favorite quote from these two kids.
Okay.
And be fair, this is a reenactment. Maybe the writers wrote this. I don't know. Okay?
Okay.
One of the boys says, the only way that somebody could ever do that is if it was clay or they had some space age tool or something. So we've now narrowed it down that the only way you could chisel into a rock is clay.
Yeah, you would have had to
or a space age
drizzle it in
tool.
when it was soft.
So you can't draw into a rock unless it's clay or a space age tool. I guess in 1988 chisels did not exist.
Yeah.
So So Trevor is just so excited. Trevor Johnson is so excited about this. And he says, let's show my dad. That's another quote. Okay. So now we have Trevor's dad, Steve, and Patty Johnson. They're being interviewed. And Steve tells us, I had to see this rock.
Had to.
Because my son's excitement was so crazy. And so he has to go see it. Get out of here. So he takes him down. And he then tells us, he then tells us some of the feelings that he got from this.
Yeah.
Okay?
He expresses the emotions.
Yeah, and here's the thing. In the reenactment, I'm going to get...
This is a giant rock, according to the reenactment. It's like a boulder in a river or in a creek.
It's like 3 feet long, and it does. It's got all these drawings. Like there's an X on it. Like it looks like a shape of like a sun carved on the side.
Oh yeah.
And then like it was weird. Like there was a person.
There's triangles and personages and stuff. Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff chiseled into this thing. Okay. So now Steve has come and seen it. And he tells us...
Steve feels some kind of way about this rock.
Oh, yeah. Here's my quote from Steve about seeing this rock. I got a very immediate feeling that this rock had something to say. It really had something very positive to say about life to me. And being so challenged, I got a great boost out of it.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And being so challenged, I got a great boost out of it.
What does that mean?
I don't know. All right. So now we get Patty. She sees the rock.
She is also now brought out to see the rock.
Yes.
We got the boy, the son, and the father. Now they've run back to the house and they say, "Mother, you must come see this."
You must see this.
And so she decides to go see the rock.
So now she's gets
She's
to
on
see
her.
this
Yep,
rock.
she's going to stumble
And
upon the rock.
this is her explanation of seeing the rock. I had the most eerie feeling. It was a good feeling.
I've never described an eerie feeling as a good eerie. But go on.
Yeah, okay. It was a good feeling. A very positive one. But it just, you can't say the words that the rock makes you feel like.
They are talking about this rock as if it's a cult leader.
If it's like a sign, or if it's
the Son of God. I
Yes.
don't know. They are acting as if they are going to start worshiping this rock. I didn't know where the story was going. I thought we were going to start some church of rock worshipers.
So, to sum up our story so far, we have a family that has found a rock
In a creek
in a creek
that has some markings on it.
that has some stuff chiseled into it. Okay?
Yep.
So then we learn about this Johnson family. Times have been hard.
Yeah, it's not been good for them.
They're living in an apartment. Steve, they've been having financial problems. Steve is a correction officer. He doesn't like his job. Patty is a secretary, and
They're barely making ends meet.
They don't have even enough money to pay some of the bills, all that. And they'd run into some hard times lately, I guess. There's a new mall that is being built there in Port Angeles. And they were planning on opening up 100 square foot little shop in this mall.
Yeah, which makes me think, I think I know why they had financial problems.
So, but construction had run behind, and
Yeah, so this is where their financial problems are coming from.
and they say that Patty had quit her job as a secretary to try to get this shop running.
So choices were made.
Choices were made.
That is how they ended in financial problems.
So construction had run behind, and it had
As it always does. And it's bleeding money with no income.
Yeah.
There's nothing coming in from this. Yeah.
So this has caused even more financial burdens. So that's what we learn about what's going on in their life.
Enter the Rock.
Then enter Rock.
And not Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
No. 48 hours later, after seeing the rock, Steve gets a phone call from the ownership of the mall. And they say, can you come in and talk to us? And so they do. And the ownership of the mall says, hey, you know what? We want you to open a store.
A dress shop.
It's a dress shop, because we'll learn that later. Not just
Not just any old store. No.
store. We want you to open this 1,000 square foot store.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve proceeds to tell the owner of the mall, listen, we don't have the money for this. And out of the goodness of his heart, they say, we're going to take care of your inventory for you.
Yeah, we're going to cover the cost to finish up this square footage design, construction, and fill the store with inventory on our own dime.
Said no business owner.
No
ever.
one does that. That is not real. That did not happen.
3 weeks later, their shop opens with great success. 3 days after the shop opens, Steve is offered a manager's position of the movie theater in the mall. Mm-hmm. Can you believe this? Can you believe this luck?
I can't. I don't think that this is how this actually happened in real life.
Don't. You stop it right now. And you know what? Less than a month after managing this movie theater, they are so impressed with Steve and their skills and their business things that they say, do you want to buy this theater? And we're going to sell it to you for super cheap.
Yeah. A month.
So I guess they've made so much money from him being a manager and running a dress shop that he buys this movie theater.
Yeah, that this business, whoever these entrepreneurs are that have funded and opened up a mall, which is not a small expense. Mm-mm. And the mall, according to Steve, is raking in the money. The movie theater and the dress shop are bankrolling. And the investors who originally thought that they wanted to open up a mall to make money off of see that the mall is a resounding success and say, you know what? We're going to just sell you a portion of it at rock bottom prices.
Yeah. Why not? Said no businessman ever.
You know what? It makes sense.
So
it's all because of The Rock.
But wait, it gets better. Yeah.
The Rock's still not done giving?
No.
Okay.
3 months and 1 day from the time seeing The Rock. They open another store, a candy store.
Candy shop.
To great success.
Yeah. Cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. And the reenactment, he's just bringing in dollar bills in that cash register like crazy.
This episode has aired, I think it said at the end of November. And in October, do you think that their good luck is over? I don't think so.
No,
they've seen this rock. And in the reenactment, the family is going and they're sitting along the bank and they're just sitting by this rock because you clearly have to go back to the rock and rub it and call upon it some more. And so they do that clearly all the time. And then someone out of the blue says, you know what?
It's the same people that are giving them all of the mall stuff and the movie theater and all of that. So, guess what?
Someone else comes to him and says, do you want to rent this house, this 5-bedroom house, for free?
For free?
For free? All you got to do is just do some maintenance and upkeep.
I need a little bit of maintenance done to it. And Steve's great with his hands, so it's a win-win.
Okay. Again, said no homeowner ever.
It wasn't the homeowner. It was The Rock influencing them.
So this is where our story ends. I know you guys are all very disappointed, but we have come to find out that we have an amazing rock that gives you money out the wazoo and free
great
housing.
Business skills.
Yeah.
You can own a candy store, which is like my dream.
So this is
a movie theater and a dress shop.
So this rock gives money freely and living freely. Housing.
Yep.
Free housing.
All your dreams come true.
Yeah. All your dreams come true. So, is it The Rock? Or is it just a coincidence, is what Robert Stack says?
A coinky dink?
We'll never know.
We'll never know. Well, so Unsolved Mysteries at this point decides they want to kind of trace some
Okay.
Ancestry
you're
back
right.
to
So
this,
they
or not
do-
ancestry. They want to try to, because here's the thing. Port Angeles, Washington, up there, there's a lot of Native American history up there. A lot. And so they try to figure out
What is this rock?
what is this, not even, but what do the engravings, how old are they, all of that kind of stuff.
So
This is
They
what I
bring-
found even the most interesting.
they bring in an expert.
They bring in an archaeologist.
He looks at it and says, nah.
He
Looks-
says, no way.
He's like, this looks modern.
Yeah, he said, this is not an old rock. This is someone did this to the rock.
Yeah.
It's not old. It has
And
no
dude, he's
symbolism. It has no connection, no meaning, no
He's
nothing.
literally on the episode for like 10 seconds. He's like,
I know,
nah.
like, I want to actually hear more from that guy. Can we get, yeah.
And so that, I guess, that's where our officially ends. Is it the rock or is it a coincidence? We'll never know. But Patty and Steve are just so convinced. They're so amazed. This is the biggest BS story I've ever heard in my freaking life. I could not believe this crap.
Okay. Did you look up anything about these people
I
post
can't
the
even-
story?
I can't. So I did. All right. Here's our update.
Okay.
You're gonna be disappointed. There's not a lot of update on this.
Okay. They didn't continue to have resounding success everywhere?
You can't find these people.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing about them?
No. Nothing after this. So I got on a Reddit forum.
Okay.
And there was a radio station in Seattle that was like, hey, does anyone know about this like story? Well,
Anyone else seen this rock?
I've seen this on Unsolved Mysteries, and we would actually want to kind of do a story on it. And it was like in 2010 or something like that. No.
No one reaches out to them?
No. And then I was on a treasure hunter website, and they're like, hey, what's the story behind this? And there's a lot of people, like, someone's like, this is a hoax,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Some other people are like, yeah. No one else seems to have seen this rock. There's no pictures.
I was going to say, is there photos
No.
of this? Nothing.
The
Because Unsolved
only
Mystery
photos-
knows they took an archaeologist out to
No.
it.
And they call it Mystery Rock. Okay, that's what it's
But no one
labeled.
knows where it's located.
Well, some people are like, yeah, because here's the Tumwater Creek does exist.
Okay.
It exists in Port Angeles.
Exists. Yes, we know of that. I saw the Twilight movie.
Other people on these forums and stuff are like, yeah, I know the area. Like if you go there, but
There is no
but
mystical
it does
rock
not
that people
seem
talk
to be
about.
A lot of people that have been to this rock and are like,
And having grown up in a place where I think pre-internet and MapQuest and stuff, like knowing where like, hey, there's a marker that's well known or X, like people in the community or around that area know what that is.
so I've spent some time in the desert
Yeah.
and I've actually seen petroglyphs
Yes.
on rocks.
Yeah.
They are categorized at like everyone knows where they're at.
Yeah.
And you can go and you can see them.
Yeah.
And
They're all over. We're in the Sonoran Desert. They're all over the place.
Yeah, and they are beautiful.
yeah.
Like I've seen it at least 3 or 4 different ones. And they're beautiful to look at, but they're very well known. And
Did you have a feeling when you looked at them?
no.
Has anyone offered you money or a free business?
So
How about a multi-level marketing business opportunity?
I here's the thing. I looked into this mall. This mall
Okay,
does,
I was gonna say,
it does exist.
The mall exists. It's the
not
dress shop
called-
there.
It was called Landing Mall.
Okay.
It's not called that anymore. It's called like the Wharf of Port Angeles. It's not a big mall. It was sold years ago. It's been redone.
Yeah.
All that. So like it exists. I tried to find a list of stores in the 80s. Doesn't exist. Like because I was trying to narrow down like which store was
Well,
theirs.
if they owned a business, I would think there's got to be record of people's names that owned who owned the movie theater.
I looked into this. Okay. And so I am literally coming to anyone that is listening to this. If you guys know about this rock and you know these people, I truly want to hear about it.
I think it was a hoax.
And that's where I'm leaning. So
But
Here's the thing.
I can imagine that Unsolved Mysteries would have fallen for a huge hoax in the fact that if this man says that he owns the movie theater and owns a dress shop and all of that stuff, clearly he either had to have owned it. So was the financial distress at the beginning of the story not the truth, and they just happened to have some funds and had some success? Opening a mall in the 80s and having it be successful was not a big gamble.
Well, I guess so that's kind of where I was going.
Like, who are these people and what happened to them after this episode? Where's this rock at?
I looked for Steve and Patty Johnson.
Also a very common name.
Very common name. Trying to find them, not easy. I looked for Trevor Johnson because clearly
that's the son, yeah.
He's an adult now. I even looked for Jamie Parr.
The other kid. Did the other kid have good luck? He also saw the rock.
We don't know.
Oh, dear.
So, again, but Trevor Johnson's very common name. Could not find these people. Even Jamie Parr could not find. So,
once again, it's still an unsolved
this is not a
mystery?
freaking mystery. Don't even go there. Okay? Here's the thing. There's only a couple solutions here.
Okay.
This is a massive hoax, and these people are just cons. Or,
what's the long game?
I don't know.
Just attention?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe they were hoping.
I actually don't think that's the case.
Okay.
Okay. Someone probably did draw on a rock. It's not the first time that someone drew on a rock with a chisel. Okay?
Okay.
These people clearly needed to find religion.
Find something.
And then they decided to attempt to be entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneur. Yep.
And they succeeded.
And they were successful.
It's not uncommon for someone to open a business and be successful.
Their timeline is a little odd to me, that within like a month. I would also love to know this business owner that's just giving away free businesses and renting free houses.
And that's where I'm like, this doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make any sense. And if there's anyone like that in our area, hi, call me, right? Because that doesn't exist.
Well, and we're only hearing it from their side. Like,
yeah.
Okay, maybe the guy's like, yeah, we can loan you the money to buy your inventory. But yeah. I don't really believe that he just was like, we'll take care of it for you out of the goodness of our heart.
Don't worry about it. Yeah.
And then sell them a business undervalued, like
that's making money.
Yeah, a movie theater. Like, no. You can be an entrepreneur and you can be successful at it.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't take a rock to do that.
No. But yeah, the way they tell the story, I'm like, there's no way this happened the way it happened. Like, these business people didn't just be like, you know what? Why don't we just give you all this stuff for free? Or below market value? Why not that?
That's not how it goes.
No. So, I don't know. I wish I had.
I've worked with wealthy people before who don't need to earn a dime. And guess what? They still sell everything I've ever helped them sell at a significant profit. I've never once sat down with a wealthy person who has something to... So I'm a realtor, right? I've never sat down with someone who's financially very comfortable and successful and had them say, you know what? Sell it for below market value significantly.
Out of the goodness of my heart.
Just out of the goodness of my heart. Nobody does that.
And here's the thing. I thought it was interesting because I looked for these people. Like, you would think if they were on Unsolved Mysteries, you can't find them. So this is not the update I wanted. But I am, if you know about this rock. And I looked, like, it appears that no one else has seen this rock.
Where's the archaeologist that saw it? Do we got eyes on him? Let's try to find him.
Yeah, we'd actually never get his name in the episode.
Are you serious?
No, we don't know who this guy is.
You know who I'm going to suggest this story to? My sister Brooke. Brooke is an internet sleuth lord.
Yeah. So
She can find anyone, anything, and dig up all of the
what I'm
nitty
saying
gritty
is,
about them.
after this episode,
These people drop off the map.
these people drop off this map, and so does this rock.
Maybe it got taken back up to outer space.
No one else appears to have seen the rock.
Maybe it was aliens. Ben,
Martians, according
maybe
to
it was
the boys.
aliens. And they were like, oh, shoot, I left my rock down there. I got to go back and get it.
Because you would think that other people in Port Angeles would see this story.
Well, they'd
hear
see this story and be like, oh, let's go check it out.
Let's go find this rock.
Yes.
And then there'd be pictures of it.
Like found the famous rock.
The only picture,
waiting for my good luck.
The only picture you can find on the internet right now of this rock is the one from Unsolved Mysteries.
And we don't even know if that's the actual rock. They never say that.
I would assume it is, because Unsolved Mysteries goes up there to film it.
Mm-hmm.
They bring in this archaeologist, and they film. I would assume.
Okay.
But that's me assuming.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's all I got. That's all I got for that one. The dumbest story
I love
ever.
it. I
on
love
Unsolved
that story.
Mysteries. It's so dumb.
It's so good. Okay, so there you go, guys. That is our recap, and unfortunately, our lack of updates.
There's a lot of no updates on this one.
This was a rough one as far as anything. It's, yeah, I was kind of surprised that there, and I didn't do any research on the rock because I was excited for
it's a
you
mystery.
to
It's
do
a mystery
that,
rock.
the mystery rock. So I'm even quite surprised that I thought for sure by now this would have been some sort of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like underground tourism, dark tourism is what they call it, where people like go and see these kind of oddities in different places. I assumed that this would have become that kind of place.
I thought so too.
And nothing. So
Nothing.
okay, well, before we go on to the question of the night for our couple part of the episode, I just want to give a few official updates. So we're 9 episodes in. Technically, we launch or drop our very first episode this upcoming Tuesday. So Ben and I are going to kind of take a little bit of a break from our recording schedule because we want to see how these episodes are being received so we can get some feedback, and if we need to do some changing and formatting in how we're delivering these stories to you. We're not like several weeks or 3-4 months ahead in the game to do it.
Yeah.
With that said, I've got all of our info here. If you guys have any feedback, feel free to email us at unsolvedcouplepod@gmail.com. One word. You can find our discussion group on Facebook, where every week I'm going to post some sort of picture or something from either the episode or different things to have an open conversation with any of our followers or listeners or unsolved mystery people that want to talk about these cases we're covering on Facebook. And that Facebook group is called Unsolved Couple Podcast. Okay? On Instagram, you can find us at Unsolved Couple Pod. And we would appreciate, we are now streaming on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, several streaming services. The best thing, if anybody out there would love to support a completely independent podcast, we have no one above us. We are doing all of the work in-house on our own, all of our own editing. Could rate and review us with 5 stars. That helps a ton with getting recognition out amongst people. Okay, with that said, if no one is interested in our silly little marriage question, you feel free to exit the chat now. Okay, for anyone else who wants to stick around, Ben, I have a question for you for this week.
All right.
If you had to survive an apocalypse, how would you do it?
How would I do it?
Mm-hmm. What would be your game of attack? Or I guess we are sitting here recording this and we get a news broadcast that end of the world, breaking news. What do you do?
Well, we're in the desert, so we're toast.
Yeah,
We are toast.
100%.
I mean, you got to go.
There's no water.
That's what I'm saying.
There's none.
The first resource you need is water.
Mm-hmm. We've got, shelter, but we've got people, and people in the desert are going to get desperate quick.
Well, there's no water source.
Mm-hmm.
So my first thing is to get out of the desert.
Okay.
And then to higher elevation.
Okay.
Where there's resources and water.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go as far away from.
Do you think you would do well in sort of a dystopia?
No, I think everyone thinks they want to do well, but you don't
Brad
really
Pitt
know.
in World War Z.
I probably wouldn't. And this is why. Because, like, I don't have, like, outdoorsy skills. You have to have, like, that. Like, I like camping. I like that stuff, but, like, I like that show alone.
Yeah, but that show humbles the experts real quick, which makes me realize
I couldn't even survive
that there's no way.
Day. Like, half of the stuff they know, like, their knowledge and their skills.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me realize, I don't know. And, like, because you can't survive in a city.
No.
And so you would have to literally go out and, like, survive out there. And I don't know if I would have the skills to make it. And that's hard to say, but that's the truth. So I just think that, like, that's the reality of it. And we're in Tucson, so we would
There's no water. There's
toast.
No resources. It's 110 degrees for most of the year.
There's no natural water,
You can't
nothing.
grow things here.
So, I mean, yeah, we do have a few hours away. Like, there are some water sources and that. So, like, that would be my first go-to. I would make the attempt. I don't know how long I'd last, but that would be my first thing. Get out of here. Find water resources and try to survive as far away from civilization as possible, because that's where it's all.
So your plan of attack would just be to be as
isolated
as possible. Okay, fair. I mean, you see that in, like, these books and movies and stuff that kind of give us ideas about what that looks like.
How would you survive?
How would I do it? I wouldn't. I'd give up. I'm out.
You just walk outside and call it quits?
Yeah. Like, that sounds terrible because I love my life. I'm a very positive, happy person. I love my children. Like, I love so many things, but I cannot imagine fighting every single day. And I think ultimately what would actually be the hardest is, like, trying to keep my children healthy. Like, that might be the only saving grace. Maybe some deep rooted primal motherly instinct to, like, see my children survive this. Like, fingers crossed that kicks in. I wouldn't even get lost in the woods. I don't like camping. I don't like going without a hot shower. The first thing I realized on Alone, that these people don't have caffeine or toilet paper. Do you know the headache I would have the first couple of days without caffeine? I'd be miserable to be around. I also am very social. Being in lockdown for COVID, I was going stir crazy, and I share a home with other people. Like, you still got to go to work and stuff like that, which was great. But my gosh, no, I'm out. Goodbye. It's been nice knowing you. I'll see you on the flip side. That's how things would go for me.
All right.
Ben would have to drag me along. I would be dead weight to Ben. He'd probably just get rid of me and take the children and be like, all right, guys, sorry, your mom's just not going to come with us.
Your mom's not going to make it. She's slowing us down.
Exactly. Anyways, so we hope you guys all enjoyed tonight's episode or today's episode whenever you guys are listening to this. And we will see you again next week where Ben and I recap one of the original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved mysteries.
Ben, where is our dramatic? You said you promised the people a few episodes ago in the sneak peek I posted that it will always be dramatic.
It is in the beginning.
No.
Unsolved mysteries.
There you guys go. Have an awesome day. Bye.